The Raptors had a tough loss on the road. They lost 118-113 to the Portland Trailblazers. We'll get to that just in a minute. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Sherman Hamilton, of course. Paul Jones will be joining us a little bit later. Now, we asked you last week to send in your questions through YouTube comments. We'll get there in the third block, but continue to do that because we're going to be doing that tomorrow as well. Sherm, let's talk Trailblazers now. They shot 56% last night. Hard to stop if you're a Raptors team defending that. Of course, they had CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard was playing back to his usual self. So, what were your takeaways from the game?
Well, it was difficult to see the Raptors give up 33 points in that fourth quarter and allow Portland to shoot 57% from the floor. So that's going to be a recipe for disaster when you're trying to mount a comeback. And they did a good job getting back into this game and give themselves a chance, but the offensive efficiency really hurt them. And I thought Portland got whatever they wanted in terms of what CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard were able to do. And, we're talking about guys who have perennially been guys who could score off the dribble, put pressure on your defense. And I think overall for the Raptors, being unable to contain them really opened up things on the back end. The rebounding issues in terms of a Larry Nance Jr. who did a great job in that game coming off the bench. But overall, the pressure offensively from Portland really hurt the Raptors, and the consistency that they played with and mounted in the fourth quarter, the Raptors weren't able to overcome.
Well, then how do you stop them in the future going forward? Like a team like Portland, where you have two guards who are your main primary scorers, and obviously the Raptors have a versatile team that's long and lengthy, but what would you do to defend those two players?
Hope and pray.
That's not good enough.
When you think about those two guys, this is a league of the greatest players in the world, and you're not going to stop guys. You're trying to make their life difficult, but they are going to get things. And I think the Raptors, in this case against Portland, just weren't able to present enough challenges in terms of the tightness on the defense that we've seen them have in the past, their ability to keep the ball in front and contain with pressure and make people make tough shots. And if you can do that, you're doing your job. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, they are tough shot makers. So you want them to make as many tough shots as they can. But I thought they got some clean looks. The Raptors really got exposed on dribble penetration. They got to the basket. Wasn't much resistance with consistency. So when you factor all that into a team like the Raptors that are usually very on point on the defensive end, regardless of what's happening offensively, then you have explosive guards like that. It's a difficult night.
Very much so. But who didn't have as much of a difficult night on the Raptors was actually OG Anunoby. He had a great start to the game. The Raptors were actually leading in the first quarter. Let it slip up a little bit in the second, but what did you take away from OG's performance, especially in the first?
Yeah, I didn't know if he was going to miss that. The way he started the game, it was like he had everything on lock. It looked so fluid. It looked like the basket was as big as Lake Ontario, and he was just going to continue to make hoops. And, when you see a guy get off to that kind of start, you start to think career highs because his rhythm was so good. And unfortunately for OG, he slowed down, started missing shots. It's inevitable. But I thought that the way he started, he was aggressive. And on the road, you want your leaders to set the tone. And I thought OG did a great job of that from an offensive perspective. But I just love his ability to shot make. Different ways that he can score. Yes, he knocked down a few threes early, but his shot making, his step back, his handle, creating space, getting to the basket with physicality and scoring around the paint. His offensive game is looking so good because he's so versatile with the ball in his hands.
Absolutely. It makes a difference when you're able to come out and throw the first punch.
Absolutely.
You're not playing in defense in terms of trying to get the game back. You're on the offensive end trying to push the game forward. And of course, OG's so great at just coming out so confidently and really taking that leadership role right off the jump. Now, somebody who also did that, but in the fourth quarter, was Fred VanVleet. Now, Sherm, I'm going to say this right now. I'm not a fan of superhero basketball. However, you do need a guy that's willing to put on his cape and hit some clutch shots down the stretch when the team needs it the most. And Fred VanVleet, he did that, and I was off my couch last night, on my feet, being like, "What is going on, Fred? Let's go."
Well, and I think I agree with your point about hero basketball, but I think when we're talking about Fred VanVleet, it's necessity basketball.
Exactly.
He's a leader. He's a guy that they're going to throw the ball to and say, Fred, get us something, whether it's him scoring the basketball or him making the play for someone else. And I think that's a bit different because that hero basketball can be selfish.
Yes.
Everything we know about Fred is not selfish. He's a team guy. He's a team leader. He sacrifices for the team. So when he has to put his foot on the pedal offensively to make plays, we know he's doing it out of necessity. So I like the fact that they have a guy they can count on to step up. I like the fact that he said he wants to be that guy to step up. But Fred, to me, is a guy who he plugs in whatever needs to be plugged. And if it's not him being offensive because someone else is getting it done, he has no problems laying back and allowing that person to get it going and set the table. And that's the beauty of leadership.
Absolutely, because, throughout the rest of the game, he was a facilitator. Yeah. So I do like the fact that he's able to make shots down the stretch when the team needs it, of course. We're now going to hear from Coach Nick Nurse from their thoughts from yesterday's postgame.
Well, I think those guys, both had a super impact in the game, and I think they created a lot of stuff. I think they did shake free for some stuff inside and out, right? But I also think that, McCollum had a, really good shooting night. Obviously, he was good. 10 for 21 for Lillard isn't the end of the world, but I thought they did a good job of getting their other guys some really good opportunities, and some opportunities that were just okay, and those they stepped in and made a couple big shots. I think we got the ball directed a few times, especially in the fourth where we wanted it, and those guys made a couple big corner threes and things like that. Kept them really going. I mean, they were good all over. I mean, the bench scoring was big, right? All those guys really contributed for them and made it even extra tough. Well, I would say this, Doug. I don't think as a team we guarded very well, right? I don't know if it's looking at matchups or things like that. I just think that when they shoot 56%, you're gonna have a hard time winning. Well, we came out guarding really well, right? I think we were really into them and really active and doing things, fairly well the way we wanted to do them. Really, I think the start of the second and the start of the fourth really let us down, right? I think it changed the whole momentum of the first half and then made us put us in a hole in the fourth. So again, I think we were on the right track. I think tonight we did it really well in a couple quarters and not so well in another couple. Little inconsistency in the game tonight. Yeah, just trying to find a place to squeeze him in. Eric, I thought he had a good end of the third, and obviously it was tough on those guys to start the fourth. When he brought back both Lillard and McCollum, and we couldn't survive a possession. It was 3 possessions, timeout, and that was it for those guys. So, and it's too bad too because we actually, we had a great cut backdoor layup, point blank. I think we had a couple of those and didn't score them, and that didn't help. I think that might have let us survive that a little bit if we could have put those in. Yeah, we got to do a better job of containing it in general. I think it hurt us in the last game too. Down the stretch, it wasn't any sets or anything. We guard initially well, and it comes to a top of the key ISO or a wing ISO, and we've got to do. Again, it's collective. You're right. Those guys are hard to guard, but when there's an action like that, there's got to be a reaction to the help defense, and it was just a little. We missed a few of those, or it was a little late. They were already into their takeoff. Or we made one rotation and didn't make another or something like that. So again, it's a collective effort. Well, they were blitzing him tonight, right? So they were taking the ball out of his hands. We did a really good job, I thought, especially early. We were finding wide open shots, etc. We didn't do as good finishing at the rim as they kind of made an adjustment to kind of stay home and we had to make a few in the paint, and we didn't make enough to make him pay for that. So it was tough for him to get going when they're blitzing him like that all the time. But you're right, he did get going and tried to will us back in the game. We just needed with about 1:40 to go, we needed a stop. It was a 1-point game, and I thought we had a really good defensive possession, and we didn't get a break on a really light drive. Yeah, I mean that's how you got to take them as Josh is learning moments. I think Freddie made an unbelievable pass on a kind of but I'm not sure Scotty saw it through the traffic, right? And it was coming, with a little top spin on it. I think it caught him by surprise. It looked like it was going to be a two-handed dunk on that one. The other one, I'm not sure quite what happened. I'm going to have to look at it, where he went kind of underneath the basket and they called him for a travel. I got to see. I would assume that Nance didn't hit it, which is why they called the travel. But to answer your question, I mean, he's a young guy. He's going to have some ups and downs, and he's going to make some mistakes. But I thought he was playing pretty hard and aggressively, and he was making the right things. He just need to finish a couple of those. Well, I mean, we wanted to play a different rotation there tonight, and the start of that fourth quarter kind of forced us into a scenario where we had to get the starters back in with about 10:40 to go. Usually we would have. We had a couple of them in there already, right? We usually leave a couple in, kind of at all times. But that's kind of what the situation that packed on probably a few more minutes. I thought, listen, they dug themselves out of the hole that was created for them, about 3 times, I think. And, they gave themselves a chance. Again, we just needed to make, with about 1:40 to go, we needed one more stop, and I thought we had a good defensive possession going there. We had it bottled up pretty good a couple times on the side, and just about a denial out there, and then they end up getting a couple free throws out of it. But so I thought they were playing fine, playing hard.
We're now going to head over to our third member of our crew, Paul Jones, for his thoughts on injuries and team defense.
Thanks, Savanna. Let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the team defense. And, it's kind of misleading when you look at what's happening with the Raptors. They lead the league or are near the top of the leaderboard in a number of different categories. Forcing opponents into turnovers, points off turnovers, steals, deflections. These are all great categories defensively to be high in the charts. But the problem is when those things don't work, you've got to be solid behind that. And right now, the Raptors are showing a little bit of a propensity not to be as workmanlike and as tough, putting that multiple effort in behind those things the way they have in the past. I witnessed the last 2 games where both Detroit and Portland have shot north of 50%. Detroit was a team that came in on Saturday night, and they came off a 78-point game. They were the lowest scoring team in the league at 94 a game, and they hang up a season high 127 on the Raptors. Even last night in the loss to Portland, 113 points on the road. You're shooting in the mid to high 40s percentage. You make 15 threes. That should be good enough for a win. So I'd like to see the defense to return to where it was early in the season with the steals and the aggressiveness and the forcing turnovers, but behind it, have the effort that matches that with, keeping your guy in front, challenging shots and rebounding. So they've shown that they can do it. They just need to get back to it. So Pascal is back, and, much to the sometimes chagrin of some fans who think, you need a traditional center or you're better without one of your better players, be it Pascal or Fred. That's not the case. Pascal's a mainstay. He's going to be in the lineup. He's a guy that attracts double teams. And then, unfortunately, this isn't basketball where you play half the court and then you go down to the other end and somebody jumps in and plays the defense. Pascal's going to have to guard guys that are sometimes bigger and stronger than him, and as do all the other guys. And it's the lineup that Nick Nurse chooses to go with, where you have, without Fred on the floor, you've got 4 other guys that are the same size. They can switch, they can guard, but they need to do it better. And if you're looking at Pascal Siakam and saying, well, he's playing the 5. Well, yeah, he's playing the 5, which means he's very capable of guarding guys out in the perimeter. He's a good rebounder when he puts his mind to it. And those are things that he's going to have to do when he's playing that position. And as I said, don't forget, they've got to go up to the other end and deal with Pascal. They've got to deal with him on the perimeter, with his ball handling, with his quickness. They've got to deal with him running the floor. They've got to change ends of the floor. So all of those things play into Pascal's favor on the offensive end. Defense, it's not a one-man job. It's a five-man job. Pascal may have a player, as I said, bigger and stronger, but he still is very capable. And as I said earlier, I'd like to see the Raptors get back to it with a full core doing all they can defensively, and it'll make it much easier on any said mismatches the other team thinks they have. Well, the Raptors are at an important stage in their development. They've got some holdovers from the championship team. They're trying to integrate new young faces into the system, learn the NBA game, learn the identity of what the Raptors are all about. And it's tough when you have injuries and you have guys in and out of the lineup, including some of your veterans, some of your mainstays, Pascal Siakam, Kem Birch, who is not long in the system himself. They only got him last year, partway through the season. And then you've got some of your young guys out with, Precious Achiuwa didn't play, wasn't able to play in Portland. So injuries are a part of it. And you're going to go in fits and starts a little bit like this when guys are in and out of the lineup. The important thing is that guys are paying attention in practice. They're watching video. They're talking with teammates. They're getting a feel for everything that's going on, because it takes time to develop that chemistry. Some of the guys have it. Some of the guys have been there. They're championship holdovers, and they will lead the way. I think Fred's doing a marvelous job right now doing that. And the other guys just have to catch on. The veterans need to continue to communicate. The youngsters need to continue to ask questions. And it's tough as you work your way through injuries. But, Toronto's a team right now hovering around the 500 mark. I think the East is going to be like that all year. They're going to be, beating up on each other. So it's important on this road trip to try to develop a little of that chemistry. And you can do that when you're away from home, but it takes time on the floor as well.
Stand by, because on the other side of the break, we're actually going to be answering the YouTube comment section. Whoa, this is a slippery slope, but we're going to be answering your questions. The first one actually comes from Jack, who's asking about Scottie Barnes' offense. He's talking about the one-on-one game, if he should be maybe a little bit more in the post and work his way out and maybe attack the rim.
Well, I think what Scottie Barnes has done to us has made us realize that he has a wide skill set, and we're salivating to see what more he can do. And I think as fans and people who watch the game, you really want him to be able to operate in all areas of the floor, see how big he can be, how much he can do. And I think in the blocks is a position where he can be effective. We've seen him down there. He's got good footwork. He's got a good feel around the basket, and he can also pass out the block. I think what we have to understand with Scottie is that he's still a first-year player.
Yeah.
And you don't want to throw too much at him, but you want to see him have success. Remember, it's about reinforcing the positive things. Allow him to make his mistakes, allow him to grow, but allow him to also trend in the right direction. And I think him in the blocks, we saw it against Portland. He did have some success, but then he didn't have some success. And I think that's a great balance to strike for learning. But Scottie Barnes is a player who has a high ceiling. His basketball IQ is great. And I think we're just going to see him continue to develop. I'd like to see him have possessions and see him in the clutch make plays.
Absolutely. I think that, you don't want to put him in a corner and just be like, no, play out of the post now. He does have this strength, and he does have a decent size to play down there. But I think if for versatility reasons and just to continue growing his game, I would like to still see him on the outside as well, develop his shot a little bit more, and then he could be one of the best players in this league potentially if he does that. So it's too early to put him in a box per se. But if you want to get to our next comment, it comes from Jeff this time. And Jeff is asking about Pascal Siakam's peak. If he hit his peak, he's 27 years old, and he's wondering how much further can Siakam go?
First of all, he hasn't hit his peak. He's 27, and I think he's just going into his prime when you think about his age. And for Pascal Siakam, I think what we're seeing is he's passing the ball a bit better. He's seeing more. And overall, a guy's game when you're at that level, it's not these big jumps that you see. It's you see these improvements. You recognize they're doing things a bit differently. And that's the growth and maturity you see. We saw Pascal take those huge leaps. We saw him go from a guy who was a scraggly young player who really didn't know what he could be to a player now who understands that Now it's about putting the pieces on top of his game that allow him to continue to grow. And one piece we're watching right now is his passing ability.
Yes.
Pascal can become a better shooter.
Yeah.
He can become a better ball handler. He can become a better post player. He can get stronger. There's a lot of areas Pascal can improve on. So in no way do I feel at 27 years old, Pascal has topped out. I don't believe that at all.
Listen, Sherm, I just turned 26, obviously, so I hope that I just didn't hit my peak.
You got a lot of life ahead of you, right?
Peak, you know, I'm stressed, but hey, I hope you haven't reached your peak either.
Oh, no. Well, I'm on the other side from you, but no, I haven't reached my peak. I'm still peaking.
All right, we got to talk a little bit about Norm. How good was it to see Norm play?
It was great. I mean, you know, when you talk about meeting players and interacting with them and working with them, Norm was top shelf. He was a classy individual, a smart guy. He was very respectful, and he was professional. And we got a chance to see Norm go from the 905 to the player he is today, earning a big contract because you have to understand the grind. Pay me later, Norm. But I think when you talk about Norm Powell, just one of the good guys, a guy that they put a lot of investment into, and they reap rewards because he helped them win a championship. And now you turn it into a profitable piece that you can move on and get something back for. So I think the whole trajectory of Norm was excellent. And more importantly, forget the basketball. As a person, great individual.
Absolutely. He was so foundational in the development of the 905 program, leading towards that Raptors championship, of course. So, you know, you love to see him succeed. You could catch the next game November 18th at 9 p.m. They will play the Utah Jazz. You watch it on Sportsnet, but then also listen to it on TSN 1050. Thanks for watching another episode of Raptors Today. I'm Savanna Hamilton. Of course, Sherman Hamilton, Paul Jones, and everybody behind the scenes. Have a great day.